Tonight on Mark Latham's Outsiders, more evidence of bullying and intimidation from the Yes campaign in the same-sex marriage debate. We've got an all-star panel, Ben Fordham and Erin Molan, talking about that difficult question, the mixture of politics and sport. We've got Tim Wilms commentating for us on the New Zealand election this Saturday night. There's Zeg's Cartoons, the Outsiders Outhouse, and the all-important Left Lunatic of the Week, another doozy. We've got a wonderful show coming up. I'm coming to you in front of the Burwood Inn in Merewether, a suburb of Newcastle, the great outsider city in New South Wales. Stay tuned. Trigger warning viewers, you've entered a very unsafe space. This is Mark Latham's Outsiders, Australia's most politically incorrect news and current affairs program. Don't forget our website, I'll put it up on the screen, marklathamsoutsiders.com. You get all the information there, all the Rebel Australia activities and campaigns, and most importantly, we give you freedom of speech. We don't give you any of the political correctness. We have nothing but straight talk here, nothing but the all-important straight talk to get the issues and the information out there for you to make your judgment as our viewers. Now, at the top of the show, I want to deal with an issue that's become so problematic in Australia, the end of free speech, harassment, intimidation, bullying by the Yes campaign in the same-sex marriage debate. If they win this campaign and it's legislated, they'll be emboldened to launch this reign of terror. The gay left militants in Australia really have lost the plot. The foundation stone of our democracy is not only to implement the will of the majority, but to respect the views of the minority, to make sure people with a minority view have got respect and a place in the democracy to argue their case. That's not happening in Australia in this horrendous debate. We've seen the sacking of the 18-year-old girl from the kids' birthday party company in Canberra. Why should someone be sacked, lose their work, their livelihood, just because they hold a political opinion? We've seen the Sydney University fracas, where the no case handing out leaflets closed down by an Antifa-type student organisation, harassment and bullying. We've seen the attempt to run Dr. Pansy Lay off the medical rolls simply because she had an opinion in favour of traditional man-woman marriage. We've seen the Coopers fiasco with 2 MPs. And I want to bring up a posting here of my own experience, not as important as the others, but notable. My own experience, I put this opinion forward on the Conversation website. It's supposed to be academic universities around Australia have the Conversation website. I was responding to an article by Frank Bongiorno, a professor of history at ANU, on whether or not marriage equality is truly progressive, properly understood in the Australian debate. There are the words that I put up. They're basically a summary of an article I wrote for the Daily Telegraph. Those words were taken down. It was my contribution to argue that because of gender fluidity and the limitations of the legislation on same-sex marriage we're likely to see, this is not a progressive change in Australian political history. So I certainly wasn't abusing anyone or nothing there that's extraordinary. My views were taken down simply because they were putting a counter-argument to the Yes campaign in same-sex marriage. Taken off the website, kaput, censorship. And I'll tell you what, this gives you a taste, an unpleasant taste of what it must be like to live in a totalitarian country where basic, straightforward, well-thought-out views are censored and removed from a university website in Australia. I protested about it. My views have gone back up. I think mainly because I said I was going to raise this in the media, and the people who run the publicly funded Conversation website, which has got a lot of government money into it, were worried that their censorship tactics were going to be exposed, and they put my views back up. Only a minor thing in the broad scheme of all this censorship, but everyone's copying it. Everyone's copying it. In the workplace, on university websites, on university campuses, doctors being bullied, seemingly attempts to take them off the medical roll. It's just about everywhere. Beer companies, you name it, everyone's copying a bit of censorship because of the gay left militants and their totalitarian attitudes. Now, an issue that hasn't been properly canvassed and exposed is what happened at Queensland University last Monday. There were some gay students there. You could hardly accuse them of homophobia. Gay students who were also very worried about the bullying and intimidation. Wilson Gavin and his colleagues had a gathering where they tried to put the no case as gay students, and this is what happened.
I support what marriage really is, and I'm gay. Who are against same-sex marriage, who see the effects that it will have on the family, on schools, on politics, on churches. These people hate us. They call us Nazis, bigots, homophobes. Where's the real hatred here? Where is the real hatred coming from in this debate? They can't call me a homophobe.
What's your fucking
problem? They cannot call me a homophobe. I show the entire way they're going about their debate is shouting us down. They are trying to shut us down, people who want to destroy everything that is good about Australia, everything that I love about Australia. They want to introduce radical gender ideology into schools. As you can see, it has already affected our universities.
That was Wilson Gavin, a 19-year-old gay student at Queensland University, speaking on Monday at the rally. And you saw the tactics from the Yes campaign, the protesters there trying to shout him down. The homophobia came from the Yes campaign, that idiot student yelling out, "Does Tony Abbott turn you on?" That's the homophobia, that's the hypocrisy in this campaign. The Yes campaign are losing support. It was all supposed to be about love and tolerance. It's turned out all their efforts, as we just saw there on the video, are about hate and intolerance, trying to shout people down, rude gestures, close down democratic debate. It's shameful. We've also got access to Wilson Gavin and one of his colleagues who didn't want to be identified, fearing more bullying and intimidation, being interviewed and explaining what else happens at the Queensland University campus in trying to stand up to these Yes campaign lunatics. Let's have a look.
They just hate everything that I love. They hate me because I'm a conservative, and they hate me more because I'm a gay conservative. And I can say to them, you know, just because I'm against same-sex marriage, I'm gay. I'm not a homophobe. I love gay men. You can't call me a homophobe just because I oppose same-sex marriage. Just because I'm up against your agenda. You can't shout me down the way you can most people. You can't shout me down by saying that I'm a bigot and that I'm a homophobe.
You get attacked online, you get people making comments about your mental health, which is something I never expected to hear from these people that preach tolerance. I've had people say that I only believe the things that I do because I come from a broken family, that I have internalised homophobia, that I hate myself, I'm suicidal, I'm depressed, all kinds of absolutely vile comments.
The official No campaign from Christian groups, from various family groups, from the conservative side of the political spectrum, it has all been tremendously respectful of homosexual people.
In terms of activists and people involved in groups like Brisbane Pride, Rainbow Labour, LGBTIQ interest groups around Brisbane, they are more than happy to welcome anyone and tolerate their beliefs until you disagree with them. And I just think it's a shame that this kind of free, reasonable debate doesn't exist within the gay community. It's either you agree with this overarching authority or you're completely shunned.
Well, I really despair for what's happening to our country, to hear those two young men who want nothing more than to have the democratic right to articulate their view. That kind of treatment is just unacceptable. It's a really bad sign of where Australia's headed, with all the left-wing censorship, political correctness, language control, identity politics. It's just gone way over the top. We've all got to stand up for a better Australian future, stand up for our basic freedoms and liberty, and ensure we have proper democratic debate. Yes, implement the will of the majority, but respect the views and rights of the minority as well. Australia, we can be so much better than this. We've got to push back against these left lunatics. They're wrecking what was once a wonderful country. Thanks for watching Mark Latham's Outsiders. I'll be back after this short break to talk to our wonderful panel, our all-star panellists, Ben Fordham and Erin Molan. Welcome back, where I'm joined by our all-star panel. I've got two Channel 9 superstars.
Are they coming later?
Well, they told me you were superstars. Erin Molan, you're Australia's leading rugby league female broadcaster. So congratulations on the work you do.
Very on free-to-air. I think we'll bring the Fox have a lot of good women.
Australia's leading free-to-air female rugby league broadcaster.
Yeah, it sounds
I think
accurate.
so. Some would say best overall.
I would just say,
But certainly in those categories.
Well, no, thank you.
I don't want to get you sacked by Ray Hadley or, or Ray
I mean,
Warren
it's
or
always
Fatty
an
Vorton.
option.
I gave you the female slot, but I think you're doing a great job, and welcome to the show. And
Thank
Ben
you very
Fordham.
much.
Isn't she killing it? I'm very proud of
stop.
Erin. We go way back, and can you believe, Mark, I can remember when she first appeared on the Footy Show doing stories. I started a viral campaign. I started tweeting, even though I'm employed by Channel 9 as well. I started sending these tweets out saying, when is Channel 9 going to give Erin Molan a full-time spot on the footy show? When are they going to make her one of the hosts? And then she'd text me afterwards saying, thanks for that.
Well, no, to be honest, I was scrolling through social media on my first year, which was pretty intense, first woman to sit on that panel. And I tell you what, some of the nasty things, it was like, you belong on radio, face for radio.
Oh,
you're awful,
you
go
could
back
say
to the
that.
kitchen.
Really?
You should be full-time. Ben, yes, thank you. So I did stand out amongst the not so
If you've got a
pleasant
face
ones.
for radio, what would they say about the big man?
Oh, I'd say, yeah. Well, to be honest, he's
He's got a
male,
body for
darling. It
radio.
doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. He's a
Doesn't
man.
matter. But Ben, you had an interesting first meeting with Erin?
Yeah,
back-
look,
back
I
then?
don't want to embarrass Erin, but we were in
No, go
2010.
ahead, go ahead.
In 2010, I was working in a place that you used to work in, which is Parliament House, Canberra. I was filling in there for a while in the Channel 9 bureau, and this young reporter rushed into the office one day. So Erin would have been working locally for Win.
Win TV.
And she ran in, and she had this tape. There was a big story that had broken in rugby league, a rugby league controversy. Can you believe it or not? They have controversies in
Can
rugby
I remind
league.
you which one it was?
Yeah.
Joel Monahan.
Joel Monahan
And the
with the
dog.
dog
Oh,
and the...
okay.
Yeah.
We've got no footage of that.
No, we don't need any footage of that, let me assure you.
So anyway, she gets the exclusive, right? So she gets in, she rushes in, she's not working for Channel 9 at this stage, but all they know at Channel 9 is that the local girl, Erin Molan, has got this scoop. She runs in, and it was, 5 o'clock or something like that, news time 6 o'clock. She runs in there and she starts shortlisting all of her tapes and trying to pull a story together for 6 o'clock, and I'm watching her. I didn't know her from Barra Soap, but I thought she could do with a hand. So I just gently creeped up and I said, can I help? And she went, no, I'm fine, right?
More politely, but yeah.
Wanting to do it
Jeez.
all on her own, right? It got to about 5:30, 5:40, and one of the bosses in Sydney decided that Erin's big break on 9 News was not going to happen that night.
Oh, no.
That they decided what
Heartbreaking.
was going to happen is that this story would be overtaken by a senior reporter in Sydney, that they would be the voice and the face of the story.
Damien Ryan.
Damien Ryan,
You've been
Damo,
brushed.
Damo.
right? Anyway, I didn't know this. All I knew is that this girl who's burst in the office an hour earlier is now in tears. She's sobbing into the phone and she hangs up and she's got tears pouring down her face. And I went and I said, what happened? And because I could kind of see that this was going to happen. I could tell you're not going to be able to
Thanks
get
for
this
the
story up
warning.
in time, which is why I'd
Yep.
offered to help, right? But as with all of us, no, I want to prove myself, I want to do it on my own. So anyway, she tells me Damien Ryan's going to be doing it in Sydney. The bosses have decided to take the story off me, and she was gutted. And I said to her,
heartbroken.
I said, Erin, I said to her, this is what happens. This is what happens in life. It's what happens in business. They're putting a senior person on the story. And then I had to in my way of consoling her was to say, listen, one day there'll be some young kid somewhere who will get some story and they'll say, I'm sorry, Erin Molan's doing it, right? And sure enough, you have a look at, 7 years later, here we are, and she's one of the key
Well, I've heard that
personalities at
Damien
Channel
Ryan's
9.
career
thank
ambition
you.
was to go on the footy show.
Well, you know what?
So you've got
I
him stuffed.
usurped
You've
him
got him
there.
covered.
I got him at so.
You've
In
got
fact,
him
I only
covered.
made it my lifelong ambition after learning that Damo wanted it. After that incident, I thought,
Good
well,
on
that's
you.
all I want to do.
Good on you.
No,
You're-
and I'll tell you what, it wasn't the last time that it happened, and it still happens to this day sometimes.
Yeah.
Well, it doesn't actually really, but I'm just trying to.
You're going great. Don't worry about that
Well,
hiccup.
thank you.
But for our North American viewers, through our association with Rebel Media, you're probably wondering, what is rugby league football? Well, let me tell you, no helmets, no pads. We had a football coach here who once said, if you want a contact sport, try dancing. Rugby league is a collision sport. Have a look at this footage to prove it.
Around, in and around and away. Oh, and he got it straight away. Bennett got straight up. Back centrefield, Minicello again. Now for Campbell. 30 metres out from the line. Preston inside. Oh! There's hit front on by Bowen. Vanderwhite gets a good shot in.
Talking about the size of Barron. People don't realise how big Barron is.
Big run to the Warriors defence tonight.
It's a big shot.
I would suggest it won't be the last.
Richard Villasanti meet Ashley Graham. Oh, Kenny down! Shouldered by Sando.
Carney inside to Logan meeting Keith Galloway with a big shoulder charge. Logan didn't like it. Now it's going to be on from the two big men.
Stop the fight.
Well, how
Wow.
good is that? That's how real men play footy in Australia. There were 6 more hits, but we'd get arrested for promoting violence. Only joking, but these days you never really know. There were 6
Can't be
more
too
there, just
careful.
as dramatic. But Erin, on the footy show, one of the great traditions is the G-up,
Yep.
where the guest is shown some footage from the past they'd rather forget.
Oh,
And
you
here
haven't
on Mark
been to
Latham's
YouTube.
Outsiders, my aim is to make you feel at home. I looked at your footage where you fell off your chair reading the sports news.
Stop it.
I looked at your footage when you were hit by the sprinklers at the gather one morning at the cricket.
Did you get anything of me being actually competent or no?
Yes, let's have a look at you on the roller coaster. Now, you've got to love a big
So
drop,
good, so
magnificent.
good. Oh,
And the
so
good
much
news for
fun.
you there is that the bloke who was really, really scared is actually a rugby league immortal.
Well, he is. So one of the best our game has ever seen for all
Joey
of our
Johns.
North American viewers. Yeah, absolute superstar.
But
But no,
No, on the serious side, what's going to happen? We're into the final 4 in the rugby league. Your prediction for the grand final? What's
oh, it's a
what's
tough
likely to
one.
happen?
It really is. It's actually fantastic in the NRL, and you look at all the changes, you know, over the last, say, 10 to 20 years when it comes to the game, and the shots you just saw then, the shoulder charge has been outlawed. It's still very tough. There's still a lot of collisions, but they're slightly less intense than that. But the salary cap has ensured that we've got such a close competition. It's awesome. The first week of finals and the second week, just incredible. Whereas you look at the AFL,
Yeah,
and they've
blowouts.
been kind of massive blowouts. It hasn't
Yeah,
been that
most
exciting.
games, yeah.
So it's always tough, but look, it's hard to look past the Storm and it's hard to look past the Roosters. I think it'll be a
Storm
Storm
Roosters, the
Roosters. I think
favourite
the
way.
Cowboys and the Broncos will probably be knocked out. But look at the Cowboys. No one gave them much of a chance.
No,
over the
we're all
past
cheering
couple
for
of
the
weeks.
Cowboys.
I'd
Wonderful
love to
fairy
see them
tale
in.
story.
And
They've
Matt
named
Scott
Matt
back
Scott.
as well.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
I don't think he'll play. He's been pretty firm on the fact that the guys who have done such an incredible job thus far to get them in deserve their place. So, you know, if they get injured, then he might get a run. But if they get through, and gosh, wouldn't that be a fairy tale situation without their best player, Jonathan Thurston, the league's current best player, then it would just be awesome. He'll come back and play in the grand final.
Ben, your tip, the favourite way, or?
Oh, look, I think I'd have to go with Aaron on. I think the Storm will win. I just think they're too strong. And there's something funny about the Cowboys too, isn't there? And I know that there's no JT, but you know, I could never stand the Broncos as a Sydney kid, as a New South Wales bloke. When the Broncos were playing, it was always they were the enemy. It was the same as watching Queensland against New South Wales in State of Origin. But there's something weird about the further north you go, the more we become accepting and understanding.
The less offensive
Yeah,
they are.
Oh,
they
yes,
are.
that's right. They
Well,
drink
you
more
kinda
up there.
think-
We like them because
you
they have a
kinda
beer.
think, you know, something about the Cowboys,
In
and
Townsville.
the Cowboys have had a bit of a rough run, and some, if you're a Cowboys fan, you'd argue that they've been robbed on several occasions in previous years. But I think it's probably got something to do with Jonathan Thurston, that he has got this personality about him and this style of play that you can't, even when he beats you, even when Queensland beats New South Wales in State of Origin and JT's the star, and I've got mates who'll be sitting there blowing up and going, oh, we get smashed again. I go, it doesn't hurt me as much when Jonathan Thurston's on the field. There's something about, and you'd know better than we would, you'd have more encounters with him. I've only met him a couple of times. What is it about JT that means that even when he's on the other side of the fence, he's the mortal enemy, you still can't help but want to hug him?
I'll tell you what it is. He not only does he have this brilliant laugh that everybody just loves, he's a genuinely good bloke. In fact, I was speaking to him and his wife Samantha this morning. They're so accessible. They're just brilliant. You look at the kicking tee that he gives to a kid every single week. His headgear.
The headgear.
It used to be once a game he'd give away his headgear, and that's fairly expensive headgear, but he gives it to a kid in the crowd, and the shots of these kids' faces, doesn't matter who you go for, you cannot help but fall in love with a bloke that has that impact on a young child. Now he gives away 2. I think he costs his sponsors around $100,000 a year just giving away free stuff to kids. He's just a genuinely good bloke.
He
He
is a
has
great-
a laugh, doesn't take himself seriously, And he's not a dirty player. You know, Cameron Smith is one of the best players in the competition, but a lot of people from other teams dislike him and his methods a little bit, bit of niggle there. Same as Billy Slater, great bloke, but a bit of niggle on the field, whereas JT, he doesn't need the niggle. He's just brilliant as he is, and he doesn't tend to offend, does he, on the field or off it?
What's your tip, mate?
He's a great ambassador for the game, Jonathan Thurston, but I'm cheering and tipping the Cowboys on the basis, as a lifelong Dragons fan, the Storm, Broncos and Roosters have all beaten us in a grand final, so we hate their guts. We hate their guts, and I'm going for the Cowboys, who've never
It has got better and better, hasn't
up.
it, rugby league? You look at the quality of it and some of the things that have happened in the last couple of years, the acrobatics, you know, where all of a sudden you're watching replays on things where people are literally flying through the air and using that split second to ground the ball and then crash into touch. And I mean, the TV coverage gets better, which means that they look better when they're performing on the field. But there's something about it that, you know, I mean, AFL's always had that athleticism, hasn't it, where you kind of look at it and go, even as a rugby league fan, you go, well, you've got to respect the athleticism of these guys.
It's only the referees. It's only the refereeing that lets down the rugby league. But there's another element. Politics has come in. Rugby league, cricket, AFL, all the codes have said they're endorsing same-sex marriage. We had Sam Newman, your counterpart from the AFL footy show, on this show last week, and Sam agreed with me that you're better to separate politics and sport, that most people go to the sport to get away from things like politics. Why would administrators want to bring politics in? Your thoughts, Aaron?
Yeah, look, I'm not a big fan of it per se, and I'm not a big fan of pushing my opinion on anyone else. I put out something publicly a couple of weeks ago saying that I was in support, but I preface that by saying that I totally respect everyone else's opinion. Yep. I agree with you. I think it doesn't do the cause any good. I think it's an individual thing, and
particularly on this issue, because this is an issue where the federal government is actually asking every Australian to express their own view.
Correct.
So when you've got a scenario like we saw the other day with a girl in Canberra who lost a job because the boss said, hang on a moment, you're in the no camp, I'm in the yes camp. But hang on, we're all being asked what our view is on this subject. I agree. I think it's safer from a corporate point of view. You know, I work for Channel 9 and I work for 2GB Radio, and I don't think they take positions on certain issues as a station. At various times, I can remember there have been hosts who've been really passionate about a certain topic and said, we should do this as a station, right? We should take a position on this as a station. And the management of the radio station actually said, no, because even though most hosts agree with said host on that issue, this is a radio station where we have all different people and all different views, and therefore the presenters who want to turn up to that event can turn up to that event. But as a station, we'll keep some independence on it. I think it's a safer place to be.
Totally. And I think if it's a charity or something like that, and a network or a sporting body wants to get behind it, 100%. But it's almost, the attempt to sway people and their opinions. That's what I dislike about this entire thing. I think we just let people make up their own mind, and
why are you in the no camp?
Well, I don't like the idea.
Why are you in the no camp?
Yeah, that's right. That's how that's the reason I'm in the no camp.
Yeah.
I don't like the idea of taking away freedoms and liberties from a certain group of citizens
you're not taking
for the sake of others. Well, there's going to be an avalanche of the abuse, the harassment, the intimidation, the sackings, the boycotts. I mean, this is not just a couple of lunatics at a university campus playing up. It's right across the economy with these big corporates. What happened to the 18-year-old girl in Canberra? What happened with Coopers? What happened with Pansy Lay, a doctor they tried to wipe off the medical roll simply because she had a political opinion. I don't like the idea of free speech and people
that's the problem.
being closed down and people being bullied and intimidated.
That's the problem, because it's supposed to be about
love.
A simple question of, are you happy for these two people to get married? But sadly, when you have people who are professional urgers and agitators, then it does become a thing of, okay, we're going to get a little online lynch mob here to go after that doctor, or Roger Corbett, the former boss of Fairfax, or this lady who works for a party planning business in Canberra. And that's when the nastiness gets into it and people decide, okay, I'm going to make life hell for this person. And that's why I was joking about the
Well, that's
the
just the beginning.
before.
It's just the beginning.
But it shouldn't
by a
be
yes
that.
vote.
It shouldn't be that. And the Yes campaign from the start should have just said to their people, they should have got ahead of it. We knew it was coming. And they should have said, listen, let's not engage on any of that rubbish. Let's keep it about love. Let's keep it about equality. Let's keep it about two people spending the rest of their lives together.
I don't think the Yes campaign need to do any of the stuff that they're trying to do. Every single, and this is, I think I've heard you speak about this before. It's so acceptable to vote yes, but I've seen on Instagram, on Facebook, on social media, constantly people posting yes voting. They do it as they vote yes, and everyone goes, great stuff, brilliant. I've not seen one person publicly on any of my social media declare that they are voting no, that isn't someone who's a commentator or someone.
Israel Folau.
Well, and look what happened to
him.
him, exactly right. But can I ask you, Mark, if none of these other issues surrounding it existed and everyone's rights were protected, if it was just about love, and I know you don't believe it is, would you be a yes voter?
Yeah. I support same-sex marriage if the freedoms of others are protected. And if Australia had a Free Speech Act where you couldn't sack someone for their political views, where you couldn't boycott a company just because they had an opinion, where you couldn't sack a Margaret Court out of Cottesloe Tennis Club as the patron just because she's got an opinion, we've got to protect opinion. The foundation of our democracy is free speech.
Correct.
And if we're going to smash that into the ground, I don't care about all these other agendas. I want to protect the basic freedoms first and foremost. But we'll find out in November how the vote
It's going to be an
goes.
interesting one to watch. You know, I was in a car yard about a month or so ago, and I was talking to a bloke who's a car dealer, used car dealer, and the bloke who was about to buy a car off him. And I just happened to walk past, and I know the car dealer, and then he introduced me to the bloke buying, and the topic came up, and both of them, and I said, where are you guys on it? And at the same time, they both said no, and I'm a yes, right? And I went, oh, okay, and I kind of thought. The bloke who I knew, I kind of guessed he might be a yes. He's a really young, he's 20, 22, 23. I thought, oh, this bloke will probably be a yes at his age. And the other bloke, there's plenty of people out there who are in the no who you would presume would be in the yes.
Well,
and I think some people, the reason you can't trust the polls on this is because people like to give the polite answer when they're being
They do.
polled.
It'll be interesting, but if the Yes campaign loses, it's on their own head. They've lost so many votes and support in the way they've behaved. It's appalling. But on a happier subject, girls' sport in Australia, it's a passion of mine. I've got a 10-year-old daughter who's, I think, Dad speaking, a great
Very
little,
advanced, is she?
a great little cricket and soccer, great little cricket and soccer player, and it's a great time to be involved in girls' sport because the cricket's got the women's big bash. The Matildas have smashed Brazil in the soccer. Erin, you're a great supporter of women's sport in Australia. What can we do to take it to the next level?
I'm so excited. I think at the moment I'm so happy with where it's at. It's still got a long way to go, but you know I'm hosting the Fast 5 netball next month on Channel 9, the international series, which will be brilliant. The Matildas, let me tell you, there is no better sporting team in the world. Sam Kerr, their striker, absolute superstar. She's the first, not woman or man in Australia, but the first Australian player to be nominated for an individual FIFA honour. These girls are absolute superstars, and how far they've come in terms of not having to pay for their own travel when they're representing our country and getting their uniforms for free, basic things that male sport, even at a club level, so Canberra Rugby Union, John Ident Cup, they get those things paid for, but women at the elite level haven't in the past, and it's changed so much. But look, I'm a massive supporter of it. I've always been a big advocate, and I've always said publicly that they need to generate revenue. You know, that the money needs to come from somewhere, and they are. They're starting to. The Matildas are filling stadiums in Penrith, you know, nearly 17,000, in Newcastle, nearly 17,000. It is phenomenal. You look at the Gillaroos, the women's rugby league team. I mean, their game standard is incredible. It is so high, and these aren't girls who have played from a young age. You know, you wait till the next generation in 10 years, because right now there's a lot of 5 or 6 year olds playing soccer and playing rugby league and playing rugby union and a million other sports, because now it's more acceptable and they see heroes. They see women who are my age. So I'm 34, probably 10 years younger than me, actual athletes.
You're in your prime.
Totally my prime, but they now have strong female role models to look up for, and they will start playing at 5, and the level and standard will improve.
The money's so key, isn't it? The money is key to everything that makes the world go round, and it's one thing to have the talent, and it's another thing to have people who are interested in watching it. But in the middle there's got to be some money. If companies can see, hang on a moment, we've got 17,000 people turning up here, we've got increased viewership on television, we've got Erin Molan hosting the Fast 5 netball, then advertisers come along and say, okay, let's do something about it. I've had a bit of exposure to this in the last couple of years through my brother, Nick, because he took on a few years ago, the ABC decided that they didn't want to run, for our North American viewers, rugby union, a little bit like rugby league that we watched earlier.
Contested scrums and line-outs.
Not as savage.
But anyway, rugby union, club rugby, which is kind of the poor cousin of rugby union in Australia, the ABC said, we don't want to broadcast anymore. It used to be a Saturday afternoon institution, really poor broadcast techniques and everything, but you'd tune in and you'd be able to watch Randwick playing Gordon or, you know, Warringah playing whoever.
Yeah.
Anyway, they weren't going to broadcast anymore. My brother said, God, this needs to be broadcast. And they're not realising the potential of this thing. So he grabbed the broadcast rights with a mate of his called John Murray, and they've now put it on 7-2 every Saturday afternoon. And they've found a way of saying to people, this is a good product. If we can get business involved here and throw some money into it, you put it on TV, on a channel that people are going to watch, you get bigger crowds. He had packed out North Sydney Oval for their grand final a few weeks ago in Sydney, and he did the same the year before that. And you've got sponsors. If you get the right business people involved, he then goes to people. He's good at bending people's arm to say, listen, you need to sponsor this, and you need to sponsor the Man a Match. You need to sponsor Canon. All of a sudden comes along. We need to get your cameras there on the day. And if these companies come along and say, hang on a moment, there's a lot of people here and there's people watching this on TV and our branding is here, well, then you've got a business. And
well,
that's
it's a
an
good
important
message
part.
for corporate Australia. Instead of trying to pretend you're political parties, get in there and sponsor the girls' sport.
100. And if you look at the
Something useful
AFL
for
as well,
society.
national competition in the AFL women's, one of their games, I think it was their first one, and obviously there's the interest factor when something's first starting out, but that outrated all the other male AFL games that weekend. I mean, there is an audience there. And now there's obviously a way that we can watch it and see it, and it will just grow.
Just very quickly on the cricket pay deal that was done recently as well. Well done to those negotiating. I know that there was a bit of anger or resentment to do with the players asking for more money, but those who are negotiating on behalf of the key Australian cricket players in the men's, they made a big point, including David Warner, who made a big point to say, no, this deal that we're doing here is for the women as well, and we're going to make sure. And the women were very well looked after in that pay deal that was struck. But it was the blokes who, if they wanted to, they could say, well, let's just worry about us and the others. But they made a big focus on the juniors, and they made a big focus on the women players as well. And I know that the women really appreciated
they
the fact
deserve that.
Well,
praise.
not
Dave
all women
Warner.
are doing the right thing. We've handed out some compliments there, but we do have a negative thing.
Here it
I've got
comes.
some footage here, Ben, of one of your old favourites, Clementine Ford.
What's
This
Clementine
is her
done?
in a debate at the
Clementine.
Diversity Council of Australia. Is this how you should be talking about your son? Let's take this clip from the dreadful Clementine Ford.
I'm so sick of talking about men. Ugh, I have a male baby and it's just all the time, it's feed me, pay me attention to me, engage me. Ugh, so boring. Men, 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 men. It's always about men.
It's not the
Mate,
best,
hang
is
on.
it? As a mum, do you speak about your baby boy that way? Really?
You've got to give credit where it's due. I mean, as a stand-up comedian, we all are. Is that what
Is
she
she a
was trying to do
stand-up
there?
comedian?
I don't know. Look, Clementine is trying to get a rise out of us with stuff like that, and she's realised. I mean, this is someone who's gone on social media platforms and also in print, advocating killing men, killing white men. I mean, she's a man hater.
She's not a
Clementine's
fan,
man
is
hater.
she?
But I think part of it, I think Clementine has actually turned into a parody. I think she's turned into a cartoon character, and she just does this stuff now because she wants to get a run on Mark Latham's Outsiders.
I mean, this is.
Did she get a run in the
big
book?
Show.
No, probably, but I pity her son having to grow up. Well,
that's-
that ends up
that's
on
true.
YouTube, and it sounds like the mum thought the kid was a nuisance.
It's hard, isn't it, when you.
What have happened to love?
trying
What
be
have happened to the
humorous
love and embracing the boy instead of paying out on him? Erin?
Yeah, no, look, I'm not a mother yet, but I'm thinking about
Yet?
the way. Well, yeah. Well,
We got
I mean-
news?
No,
We got a scoop?
This is a Mark Latham exclusive. Hey, baby, by the way, I haven't told you yet, but I'll tell you later, Sean. No.
Erin's getting married
I'm
soon,
certainly,
we're
I
told.
am getting married. I'm not pregnant as yet, but no, I 100% want to be a mother and want to have children. And I look at the love I feel now for my nieces and nephews, and I would probably find it hard to joke about it in that way. But then, gosh, I joke and say inappropriate things constantly, so I'm probably not, qualified to comment.
I'm sure you'll be a better mum than what we just saw. Now, Ben, you've got a scoop
Clementine's
for us.
madder than all three of us
She
put
is.
together.
She's
Well, that's
That's
mad
awesome.
because
No,
I am
that's
cray
crazy.
cray on many levels.
Ben, you've got a scoop. You've got a hotline to the Prime Minister.
No,
What's
no.
the
Oh,
news?
no,
No, I
Yes,
just
stop
told
it.
this story on the way here only because it's funny. It's just
South China Sea,
weird.
what have you got
But
for us?
I had a missed call. You know when you get a missed call and you don't recognise the number. So this happened last night. Missed call. I won't read the number out, but I thought I don't recognise that. So I just said, and I was busy. So I said, how can I help you? What's going on? And they said I was going to pay you a compliment. And they didn't say who it was. So I said, okay. I don't have your number in my phone. If you can let me know who it is, I'll give you a call back. No reply. And then today, on the way here, just half an hour ago, the phone number again, and I recognised the number because it's got a repetitive kind of sequence in it. So I thought, okay, I'll answer it. It's Malcolm Turnbull. It's Prime Minister Malcolm Turnbull. And I said, and I thought,
Who are you, mate?
no joke,
Yeah.
no joke. He says, Ben, it's Malcolm Turnbull. And I thought, oh, this will be Fitzy and Whipper or someone from
Kyle and
Nova.
Jackie O.
Kyle and Jackie O. It'll be some kind of FM radio stunt where they've got the audio and they're playing it. So I go, oh, yeah, Malcolm, yeah. And he said, I just wanted to pay you a compliment for yesterday. And then I realised, oh, hang on a moment, this is real because I bumped into him yesterday at Channel 9. And when I saw him, I had my father-in-law Ross with me. So when I saw him, I just said, because he didn't see me and he was coming off set, and I said, oh, PM, Ben Fordham. And we've met a number of times before, but he said, I wanted to congratulate you for reintroducing yourself to me. And I said, oh, why is that? He said, because not many people do that. He said, I know who you are and we've met before, but it was a mark of your upbringing and credit to your parents that you reintroduced yourself to me. And I said, well, I just do that as a matter of course because it makes it easier for people. And I know someone like you meet a lot of people. So anyway, I then thought, all right, I better get some goss out of him. So I said, so anyway, what else is going on?
Yeah, what have you got for us?
So, no,
Hard news.
Well, what he said, it was a very short phone call because then I had to brush him to come on Mark Latham's
Of course, of course.
But no, he had to go. But I said, listen, what's going on? He said, well, we've just done the deal with America over the refugee resettlement. So, you know, America agreed. So this was a deal done between Obama and Malcolm. There's another phone call. No, that's not him. So a deal done between Obama and Turnbull after Trump had won. So in that period, the handover period or whatever, where they would accept a couple of thousand, I think, from Nauru, and then there was the famous awkward phone call between Trump and Turnbull, where Trump said, "This is the worst deal ever. I don't want to take any of them," and Turnbull kind of said, "Oh, you don't have to take any. You don't have to take any. You just have to agree to a vetting process."
Yeah, vet them and say they're all terrorists.
So today it's been revealed, I think, that they're taking in the first lot, they're going to take 50.
Right, okay. Well,
50
that's
or
good news for
57.
Australia, bad news for
So,
the
and I
United
did
States.
say to him, I said, I read the transcript of that phone call with Trump, and I said, as I said on air at the time, I said, you did play that very well because it was clear this bloke did not want to stick to that deal. He did not want a bar of it, and Turnbull managed to get him to agree to it. So credit where credit's due. I give him plenty of stick on the radio.
Well, here on this show, we only bring on very important people, and Ben Fordham cut short his conversation with the Prime Minister to talk to us here
Mark,
and our viewers.
Mark, I was actually on the phone to Fatty on the way in, and I told him I had to go. Yeah, I told him I had to go to come to your
All
show.
the heavy hitters.
Now,
Shall we give out the Prime Minister's phone number?
To the first
No, we
caller.
won't be doing that. We won't be
But
doing
hang
that.
on a moment. You know,
Respect his privacy.
Yeah, but you get in enough trouble already on Mark Latham's Outsiders. I want to get you in even more trouble.
Okay, away you go.
No, I would never
Give
do
it out in Braille so that
Wouldn't it
only
be
the
good?
smart people can
And just
figure
say,
it out.
on Mark Latham's Outsiders, some idiot handed out the Prime Minister's phone number. Malcolm, we wouldn't do that to you.
Another good
Although,
thing.
when are you coming on this show, Prime Minister?
Yes, good question.
Yeah.
Give me the phone number. Another great thing about our show, it's not just the important people, it's the wonderful cartoons of our cartoonist in residence, the great Zeg. And this week he brings up his first cartoon about our old favourite, Alan Joyce. He hates the pie and the face man, of course. And Joycey there, he's got $25 million. He earns more than Ben Fordham, this bloke. $25 million at running Qantas, and he's given the gay lobby there only a lousy million. Well,
What about the 25 mil? I couldn't believe that this week, Alan Joyce. Like, you know, I was expecting, you know, obviously he's got a big job. I was expecting, I don't know,
10?
4, 6, 8, 25 million bucks.
You don't get that much for doing Ninja Warrior.
No.
Highest rating
You
show
only
on
get
TV.
half that for Ninja Warrior. But how do you
So-
spend $25 million?
Well, he's spending $1 million there on advertising. I think he should give it to the poor or the needy or help people get into jobs.
no,
But it is his own money.
I
That's true.
say, credit where it's due. If he's giving $1 million of his own money, fair call, fair cop, well done, I say.
Our second
You
Zeg
would disagree.
cartoon is about all the woes in Australia. Are we seeing the end of Australian civilisation? We weren't destroyed by disease or lack of energy or all the blackouts with our ridiculous power prices and policies. No, Zeg has pointed out we're going to be dying of confusion,
Very
the mass
good.
confusion of know your human gender. Apparently there's 250 different types of gender and sexuality. I've always thought I've only got one.
Is that just
I don't
of
know about
humans
you
or
two.
is that animals? Or
No,
what?
that's everyone.
Is that
Maybe Joel Monahan's dog is involved in there somewhere. It's hard to know.
It used to be. There
But
used to
that's
be.
human gender, 250
Wow.
different types. I think we've only got one type here each on the panel.
Yeah.
I'm not going to
It
go
used
into
to be.
too much
One of them used to
detail.
be known as Curious. Now, I don't know whether you ever, but when you're
Oh,
a
well,
young
I'm
boy,
that. I've always
when,
been
yeah, when you're a young boy, you know, intrigued in these things, in the back of the newspaper there'd be those naughty ads for, you know, phone calls, phone lines, and things like that. And I still remember as a young kid there was a thing called, so there'd be the straight ads and then there'd be the gay ads, but there was one that would always say gay, bi, curious, and I was
Ben, you
always
obviously
intrigued.
spent too
wondering
much
where this
time
was
down the back of the
going.
newspaper.
Oh, mate. It
Those
was
are
like,
sports pages,
Wow.
mate.
oh, but they're very close to the sports pages.
Oh, yeah, well,
yeah, there's
it's
sports
easy to
pages
get
there, and it's a few
confused,
more.
very
in.
easy.
You're
Oh, that's
telling
where I
us.
learned. That's where I learned about the birds and the bees.
Really?
In the
Curious.
classifieds.
Well,
Well, didn't
of
your
the
mum
Daily
and dad, your
Telegraph.
beautiful mum and dad, help
Oh,
you
mate,
out
you
there?
don't want to know the way my dad explained it to me.
You're breeding
Can I
like a
tell you?
rabbit, so stay
Yeah,
curious.
Tell you what my
Please
dad
do.
said to me, no joke. My dad said to me, my mum said, okay, you're going to have to talk to Ben. And he said, yeah, I am. And he said, this is how he started it. He said, you know, occasionally if I get really angry, I say the F word. And I say, yeah. And he said, well, usually people say that out of anger, but that's not exactly what the word actually means. And I remember my mum going, whoa, 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 whoa.
Oh, no.
Wow. He's
This is your
wasted.
way. This is your, he said, you know, if you hit your hand with a hammer accidentally, you yell out that word. That's an angry word, but that's not actually what the word has a different meaning.
Well, it's
How
got a
old were you?
I don't know. About 19. Unbelievable.
Speaking of which, that type of earthy language, let's go to the Outsiders Outhouse, where you can see me here. Zeg's got the drawing on there on the Thunderbox. The great place for free speech and activity in Australia. There I am. And you'll notice, for everyone sending in all the viewer feedback, we've got a new email address, mark.latham@rnnmail.com. Mark.latham@rnn.
What does RNN stand
Yeah.
for?
I think it's Rebel News Network or something
There you
like
go.
that.
You're a big deal now,
Mail
Mark,
dot-
aren't you?
Yeah, oh, well, I used to be a bigger deal, you know.
Fair point.
I used to be a
point.
bigger deal. Now I've just got an email address, so there you go. This week on The Outsiders, our first item comes from Kevin in Melbourne, and he writes as follows. I enjoy watching your show, Mark Latham's Outsiders, every week. You cover the issues left out by the mainstream media and seldom, if ever, discussed by the mainstream political parties. Kevin's a Victorian. He used to support the Liberal Party, but he's now made the switch to my party, the Liberal Democrats, and he's enjoyed his first meeting not long ago. Kevin writes that Victoria is a complete basket case, with feminist, leftist, social justice warrior crusades out in force, threatening to abolish free speech, hijacking our education system, stopping Australia Day and ramming through safe schools programs. A vicious crime tsunami is prevalent throughout this once great state. Well, we're all lucky here we live in New South Wales. Kevin writes that Premier Dan Andrews has been a disaster, although he's not too confident about Matthew Guy. And the good news about Kevin, he wears his President Donald Trump cap, the red version, loud and proud. There he is, loud and proud. He wants to make Victoria and Australia great again. Well, thanks for that, Kevin. Thanks for watching the show. Thanks for joining the Liberal Democrats, and hopefully your Trump cap's not confiscated by Antifa down there in Melbourne. Along which lines, Ben's got a letter here from John Stubbs
this
in
is
Melbourne
from
about
John-
more Donald Trump
John Stubbs
paraphernalia.
in Melbourne. Some feedback coming in here to Mark Latham's Outsiders. So he says, what a great show. I watched Tommy Robinson and Sam Newman and thoroughly enjoyed the refreshing and honest conversations. Over recent months, I've been watching less and less mainstream media as I'm finding it's making me too upset. Well, keep on watching Channel 9, John. Since Trump was elected, there's no hiding their personal opinions as the floodgates of hatred and bitterness against normal, clean, middle-class, honest, hard-working people is so exposed. I often feel powerless. So I went out and bought a pro-Trump T-shirt. I proudly wear my T-shirt around the streets of my suburb, expecting to be confronted by the Antifa Brigade. I was a little apprehensive at first, however, not a single confrontation eventuated. On the contrary, you'd be amazed at how many people secretly approach me with congratulations and praise. Sure, there were many with startled looks on their faces, and I'm sure that many could not believe what they were seeing. However, none had the guts to say a word to my face. I appreciate straight talking, and that's why I love your show. It's plain speaking with honest opinions, just like a group of blokes who would do so after work at the pub. The Australian way. Keep up the good work, and I look forward to watching future episodes. Good on you, John.
Oh, lovely. Okay, I've got one here from Brian Haig from London. So this is obviously a big deal internationally. Now, he says, hey, Mark, I've got a true story for you, but I'll let you be the judge of this afterwards. On board a flight out of the US, one of the staff sees a suspicious-looking couple on board, so she reports it to the captain immediately. Sir, I think we have a case of human trafficking. There's a very pretty, hot and sexy female passenger on board who looks quite frightened, and the man she's with is a fat old slob who looks like a leecher, very lecher, very sullen, mean and dangerous. The captain responded, relax, this is Air Force One. Very good. So, I mean, we've been praising Trump,
We
so
had
obviously
two
we had to give a
pro-Trump.
little,
We had
there
to
you
throw
go.
in a bit of a barb. No one here at The Outsiders gets
Well, hang on a
total
minute.
praise.
And fair enough, he's punching above his weight,
Oh,
and
hello.
I can say that
Absolutely.
because I am as well. But he is
She's a
captain
smoking hottie.
coach of the punching above your weight club.
Yeah, me too. I'm a featherweight in the heavyweight division with
Yeah.
my missus, but Trump is just off the planet.
Yeah, she
but
is.
And she's very
Absolutely
smart. She cops a
extraordinary.
bad rap, doesn't she? Because she is incredibly attractive. But she's very smart, speaks
Well,
a lot of languages.
course,
and
yeah.
And the other one, the one Ivanka, Donald's daughter, I mean, she is not only a very, very smart woman and also a knockout too in the sorts department, but you have a look at a few things where Donald's just missed the mark slightly or been a little bit late to the party on his reactions to things. And on a few occasions there, Ivanka has been right on the money and
she's
guiding
very
the dad
lucky.
in
the
the right
left
direction.
feminists are rabid in attacking Trump, but he's surrounded by two smart women.
Yeah.
And he should get credit for that, and he listens to them and takes advice on a regular basis. Our last item is from Craig Cornish again. perhaps in the light-hearted department. He writes, how's this for smart thinking, Mark? I had a run of break-ins at my home and I lost plenty of valuable stuff. So I peeled the attack dog sticker off my front window. I disconnected my home alarm system and quit the useless neighbourhood watch. I bought 2 Pakistani flags and put one in each corner of the front yard. Then I purchased the black flag of ISIS, which apparently you can buy on eBay, and I ran it up the flagpole. Now the local and federal police, ASIO plus Crime Watch and other agencies are watching my house 24/7. I've never felt safer. Good on you, Craig. Genius.
Oh, very clever.
Yeah. Genius.
And aren't we lucky that we've got so many red-hot coppers out there who do a great job? And you have a look at, you know, even just today we have an outgoing senior police officer in New South Wales who says, you know, a large-scale attack in Australia is inevitable. How lucky are we that we've
Well,
had...
also lucky that even in that desperate situation, someone like Craig's got a sense of humour.
Yeah, well,
it's a
100%.
terrible, terrible thing, but the
You've got
Australian
it.
way is to laugh at pretty well everything.
Yeah.
Yep.
And not take the whole world too seriously, which makes us a happy-go-lucky, pretty contented people.
Bloody
Hear,
oath.
hear.
Speaking of which, we've got our last Zeg drawing. It's the Left Lunatic of the Week. It goes to our old buddy Alan Joyce. There he is doing cartwheels, and this is in honour of the 25 million that he earns.
God, I'd
All
be
the money's-
cartwheeling too, Mark.
Yeah,
Let me tell
that's why
you.
he's cartwheeling. He's surrounded by a wonderful gallery there.
Who
Look
else
at them
is
all.
in there? Is
Oh,
it-
there's Warren Inch, Clementine Ford, your mate is there.
Shanghai Sam?
Suit Fomasan, Shanghai Sam. We better not say that's Lisa
I
Wilkinson.
was
on
about
the
to say
left.
that looks awfully a
Julia
lot like...
Baird, Bill Short and Stan Grant. We're getting a wonderful gallery, and Alan joins them on the basis he's spending the $1 million on his campaign. It's his money, but surely it could go to a better cause. In my humble opinion, that mightn't be
Of
shared.
which you are very entitled to, Mark.
Yes, we agree to disagree here on a regular basis. I want to thank you both
Good on
for
you,
being
mate.
part of the
Thank
show. Hopefully
Thank
it wasn't
you very
too
much.
painful.
No, it was
No.
fantastic. Well, when Dad went on, Dad and I constantly compete for airtime, so if Dad does something, then I need to come and try and do it
Well,
better. So
I've got to say, I reached into my Molan file and found questions about Syria, Burma,
yes.
North Korea, and wrong Molan.
I did bring him on the way in for some advice, and
she's
it was
got
along those
opinions on all of
lines.
those
We only
I
talk
do.
about foreign policy to sound smart.
Yeah.
The real
Yeah.
stuff was on this panel.
Yep.
Thanks for joining me, and in a short while we'll be back to talk to our correspondent in New Zealand about their very interesting election coming up on Saturday. Stay tuned. Welcome back. Well, one of the interesting things this weekend will be the result of the New Zealand election. We've seen electoral volatility all over the world. We saw it in the United States, in France, in Brexit, even the Australian election result last year, which was unexpectedly close. And we've got our man in Auckland, New Zealand, Tim Wilms from The Unshackled. Thanks for joining us, Tim.
Thanks, Mark. It's a pleasure to be on the show.
You've been watching the campaign closely. We've got this phenomenon of Jacinda Ardern, who is part of electoral volatility. She's taken the Labor Party from a hopeless position in the polls just a couple of weeks ago to absolutely competitive. It looks neck and neck as to what the result might be on Saturday, who forms government, whether it's Ardern's Labor Party or Bill English's government being returned. How do you see the result, and what have you noted in the campaign?
Well, it's definitely hard to predict. I mean, the polls are volatile in themselves, so you don't know which poll to take seriously. I'm not confident in predicting the result, but yes, you're right. Jacinda Ardern's elevation to the leadership, or as it's called, Jacinta Mania, has certainly taken Labor. I mean, they looked gone 2 months ago, and now they're within a whisker of winning. But it's interesting. She was going up in the polls. There was a huge surge when she first came to the leadership, but as she's begun to introduce policy, the mania has begun to wear off, and we're now seeing the birth of what's termed Taxcinda. She wants to put a tax on everything. She first announced a water tax on the farmers, then a regional fuel tax, and then she flirted with some other taxes, such as a capital gains tax, an inheritance tax, and she's now decided to put together a tax working group after the election to decide more taxes. So that's what her actual manifesto is.
Well, she must be doing something right. I know Bill English is a very staid, steady, conservative character. Maybe the media there has grown bored of Bill English, who was the finance minister and now the prime minister, of course. So is it just the freshness of Jacinda Ardern that is her defining quality, or has she got any policies that are resonating?
Well, Bill English took over from John Key, who was probably one of the most charismatic politicians that New Zealand had seen. And yes, Bill English, even though as a finance minister, he's seen, dull and boring, and obviously being a conservative Catholic doesn't help him. But I really feel that in this campaign, he's really risen to the occasion. He was seen as low energy. He's really picked up the energy. He's really taken it up to Jacinta. He's been quite feisty in the debates. He's been quite savvy with social media, doing live videos and on the campaign trail, doing a lot of energy. So he's certainly risen to the occasion as well. But whether it'll be enough to see him return, that remains to be seen.
Well, one of the hot issues in New Zealand, as with Australia, is housing affordability. The average housing price in Auckland, I'm told, has peaked over $1 million, so housing affordability is pretty acute. Labor's got a policy to cut immigration by about a third. And this, to me, makes sense. I've been saying it here, Dick Smith's been saying it in Australia, that if you take the demand out of the housing market, inevitably you take the pressure off prices. So, and you also do good things in terms of the labour market and wages growth, cutting down on urban sprawl, reducing infrastructure costs. So Labor's policy to reduce immigration must be quite the winner for them. Is that right?
Yeah, surprisingly on both these issues, housing and immigration, Labor is quite good. Not only are they cutting immigration, they're also want to free up more land around Auckland, restructure the zoning, which helps fix the supply side issue. National, it seems to be their policy is just to keep on the same trajectory, and it's really something that Jacinta is hammering home to National, that you haven't done anything for the past 9 years on this issue.
Well, here in Australia, Labor should be cutting immigration, but unfortunately their members of parliament are totally captive to the ethnic lobby. If you look at Tony Burke's seat of Watson or Chris Bowen in McMahon, they can't touch the big Australia immigration program because of the strength of the ethnic lobby, which is a terrible shame. But hopefully they'll learn something from Jacinda Ardern's success in New Zealand, even if she doesn't get across the line and form government. But Tim, here at Mark Latham's Outsiders, we don't let people sit on the fence. You said at the start you didn't have a prediction. I've got to press you here. What will happen on Saturday night? And how can our viewers in Australia watch your coverage through live streaming?
Well, we have got a special election night live stream. We're hosting it with our New Zealand affiliate, which is rightminds.nz. So I still think that who will form government will come down to Winston Peters and New Zealand First, because New Zealand has a mixed member proportionate system, so often the minor parties go into coalition with the two big parties. So I think that it'll be probably up to Winston to see who becomes Prime Minister.
Well, one thing we know for sure, Winston Peters loves the limelight. He'll soak up all the attention if he's got the balance of power come Sunday morning. But Tim, thanks for filling us in on what's happening there. And you can see here, viewers, on the website, on the screen here, the website you can go to for the live streaming. That's Tim Wills from The Unshackled, and Right Minds New Zealand will be providing excellent coverage on Saturday. Don't miss that. Go to the website and pick up all the results as they happen. Thanks very much, Tim.
It was my pleasure, Mark.
That's the show for this evening. Thanks for joining us. I particularly want to thank all the viewers who send me news tips and information. Wonderful researchers on the ground for Mark Latham's Outsiders. You're doing a great job. Thanks for viewing the show this evening. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you again next Wednesday evening at 8 p.m. when we go live. Thank you very much.